Throughout human history, epidemics have always been with us. Plague, cholera, or influenza. These diseases, which killed millions and had no cure at the time, had identifiable causes and pathogens. However, there are some outbreaks that left medical science helpless and historians astonished. Today, we will explore the strangest epidemics in history, cases where people were seized by uncontrollable dancing, bursts of endless laughter, and phenomena that modern medicine still cannot fully explain. Chapter 1. The Dancing Plague, 1518 Strasbourg. Summer of 1518. It was a hot, heavy day, the kind that makes it hard to breathe. The streets of Strasbourg seemed to burn as heat rose from the cobblestones. People were exhausted, tense, irritable. Hunger, disease, and fear had settled over the city like a shadow. That day, everything began with a woman. Frau Trophia stepped out of her house one morning and stood in the street, then suddenly, she began to dance. But this was no celebration. There was no music, no reason, she just couldn't stop. Minutes passed, hours passed, days passed, and she kept dancing without pause. Her feet were bloodied, her face filled with terror, yet her body moved as if it no longer belonged to her. At first, people watched. Then whispers began. "She's gone mad," they said. But a few days later, others started dancing too. One person, 5, 10. Soon, the streets were filled with hundreds of people dancing. Hundreds shared the same fate. Fear in their eyes, an uncontrollable rhythm in their bodies. Some collapsed to the ground, some fainted, some even died from heart attacks or sheer exhaustion. The strangest part, authorities believed the cure was music. They thought it was a hot blood illness. Let them dance, they said. Play music so they can get it out of their system. And so, musicians were brought in. Drums, cellos, violins. But it didn't help. On the contrary, the dancing spread even more. The streets had become a nightmare. The sun burned overhead, people wreathed in sweat, and the sound of feet echoed across the stone roads. No one knew why it was happening. Some said it was God's wrath. Others believed it was a demonic curse. Even today, there is no definite answer. Some support the theory of poisonous mushrooms, others call it mass hysteria. But for those who lived through that summer, the 1518 Strasbourg dancing plague was not a theory. It was real, and the most terrifying part, no one wanted to dance. But no one could stop. The 1518 dancing plague remains one of the strangest and most chilling cases of mass hysteria in history. What remains from those days is nothing more than the haunting echo of imagined footsteps in the streets of Strasbourg.
Chapter 2. The Tanganyika Laughter Epidemic, 1962 Tanzania. January 1962, Tanganyika, present-day Tanzania, had just declared its independence and had only recently freed itself from British colonial rule. The village of Kashasha, on the shores of Lake Victoria, was home to a missionary-run girls' boarding school. 159 students, young girls aged 12 to 18. Strict rules, long class hours, a stressful environment. No one knew that one of the strangest epidemics in history would begin there that year. On January 30, 1962, 3 girls in the classroom suddenly began laughing for no reason. At first, the others in the class thought it was a joke. But the laughter wouldn't stop. Hours passed, days passed. The girls couldn't focus on lessons from laughing and had difficulty breathing. The teachers were astonished. Soon, 95 students were in the same condition. Some of them laughed continuously for 16 days. These episodes lasted an average of 7 days. It didn't spread to the teachers, but all life at the school had come to a halt. The school was urgently closed. The girls were sent back to their homes. But the laughter spread to the village with them. In the villages, mothers, fathers, and neighbors also began laughing in the same way. Aggression, crying fits, fainting. The symptoms were spreading as if contagious. Within a few weeks, it spread to neighboring villages and other schools. More than 1,000 people in total were affected. In some places, the outbreak lasted for 18 months. The government sent doctors. Researchers flocked to the region. At first, they searched for a poison in the food or a gas in the air, but no physical evidence was found. They examined them and conducted dozens of tests. There was no physical illness, virus, or bacteria. As a result, it was defined as mass hysteria, mass psychogenic illness. Independence-related stress, school pressure, social tension. The brains had, contagiously, copied the same emotional response. The laughter was a strange way of releasing fear and stress. The outbreak gradually came to an end. Schools reopened, but it went down in history as the Tanganyika Laughter Epidemic. Even today, psychologists and historians still study this event, because it shows that the human mind is incredibly powerful and contagious. stress, fear, anxiety. Sometimes they can even manifest in the form of laughter. This story also sheds light on social media hysteria and mass panic events in the modern world. Today, the Tanganyika laughter epidemic is remembered as the most vivid example of the incredible and sometimes frightening effect of the human mind on the physical world. Sometimes laughter may not always be the best medicine, sometimes it can simply be a silent cry for help. Chapter 2. Sweating to death, the mysterious disease of the 15th and 16th centuries. It was midnight. The narrow streets of England were silent. Only the sound of the wind moved between the stone houses. People were asleep in their beds, but some of them would never see the morning. Because something invisible was moving through the city. It wasn't rats, it wasn't war, and it wasn't famine. People were simply sweating. But they were sweating until they died. Today, this terrifying epidemic is known as the sweating sickness, one of the greatest medical mysteries in history. And the most frightening part was this: no one knew what it was. The year was 1485. England had just emerged from civil war. A new king had taken the throne, Henry VII. Just as people believed peace was finally returning, citizens in London suddenly began falling ill. There were almost no warning signs. A person could appear completely healthy in the morning, start shivering by noon, begin sweating uncontrollably in the afternoon, and be dead before nightfall. Doctors were horrified, because this disease was unlike anything they had seen before. Everything happened suddenly. The first symptoms included an overwhelming sense of fear, severe headaches, pain in the neck and shoulders, violent chills. Then came the second stage. Patients began sweating intensely, bedsheets became soaked, breathing grew difficult, heartbeats became rapid and irregular, and the most terrifying part, sometimes death came only 3 or 4 hours after the symptoms began. According to physicians of the time, if a patient survived the first 24 hours, they had a chance to live. But most people never lasted that long. It wasn't the plague, it was worse. At that time, people already feared the plague. But the sweating sickness was different. The plague usually devastated the poor. This disease showed no preference between rich or poor. Nobles, soldiers, even young and healthy men were dying. Some historians even believe the illness specifically targeted strong adult males. Because of this, a terrifying rumor spread among the people: the stronger you are, the faster you die. People were fleeing their homes. As the outbreak spread, panic consumed entire cities. People abandoned sick relatives. Some fled the towns entirely. Others locked themselves inside their homes for days. Doctors, meanwhile, had no cure. Bloodletting was attempted. Herbal mixtures were given. Prayers were whispered. But the deaths continued. It spread across Europe. At first, the disease seemed confined to England. But in 1529, something changed. The sweating sickness spread across Europe. Suddenly, people in Germany, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Denmark were dying with the same horrifying symptoms. In some cities, the outbreak moved so quickly that people became sick in the morning and were buried before evening. Historians wrote that thousands died within a short time in Hamburg alone. And then, the disease suddenly disappeared. The greatest mystery: what was it? This is where the story becomes truly unsettling. Even today, scientists still do not know exactly what the sweating sickness was. Theories include a deadly strain of influenza, hantavirus, food poisoning, an unknown virus, environmental toxins, but none of these theories has ever been proven conclusively, because there are not enough surviving medical records from that era, meaning one of history's deadliest epidemics may have been caused by a disease humanity never truly identified. And then, it vanished. After 1551, the sweating sickness almost completely disappeared. It never returned as a major epidemic again. Imagine that, a disease that terrified hundreds of thousands, forced kings to flee their cities, killed within hours. One day, it simply vanished, without leaving a clear explanation behind. Today, modern medicine allows us to understand many diseases, but the sweating sickness still remains a dark mystery hidden in history. Perhaps nature briefly revealed one of its deadliest faces to humanity, and then hid it once again. Who knows? Maybe the disease never truly disappeared at all. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and share it. If you'd like to see more videos like this, we kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel.